things. We are streaming live over at supertalk.fm. We're also streaming from the SuperTalk Mississippi app. You can always find us too on your local SuperTalk Mississippi radio station, and you can watch us. We are on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. Our guest today is Miss Chef Tori Loomis. She is from Natchez. You may know her online as the Gatherin Girl. She's a chef, she's a hunter, she's also a great storyteller, and she's going to be the headliner for the upcoming Sip and Savor, which is happening in Meridian on April the 6th at the Max. So welcome, Chef Tori.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have been on my short list, girl, for a really long time. I thoroughly enjoy following you on Instagram and finally had a good reason to go ahead and reach out for your upcoming event. But I love how you say on, I think it's your website, that you have a passion for food, gardening, and then the pursuit of wild game. So, Chef, I wonder what came first. Was it your love of food, like just being in the outdoors, or hunting?
Oh yeah, so I would definitely say it started out with food, and then I needed means to get food. So then came the gardening, then came the hunting, and it all links together and everything connects. So.
I know you grew up in Louisiana and then you moved at some point to Natchez, but when did you first get the love of hunting? Because for most girls, if they're not introduced to it at a young age, then typically they just sort of miss out on that opportunity. So have you been hunting with family since a young tot?
So I have not. My family was hunters. Most of my family, or the men in my family, were hunters, so I was familiar with it. But I never really hunted myself until probably my early 20s, when I wanted to start hunting to have the means to get my own food, and things just kind of took off from there, and I fell madly in love with hunting.
You go, girl. But that also shows that you don't have to be, you have to be raised in it. You can sort of find this love of the outdoors or find this love of hunting, middle age, or I guess even older. What about it, other than just you wanting to find your own food source, sort of drew you to it? Or was it sort of the beauty of you knowing where your food came from that kind of got you more hooked into hunting?
Yeah, I mean, it began with wanting to be more connected to my food and my food source and different resources, and needing, for myself personally, I had this really big desire to get out there and get it on my own, rather than rely on other places, other people. But then it kind of turned into this very therapeutic thing for me, where being in nature, I just kind of had some clarity that I had never experienced before.
Which I think anyone who has spent time in the outdoors can say, when it gets eerily quiet, that's when things get good, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Okay, so the cooking came first for you. Who pulled up a stool for you in the kitchen and taught you how to cook?
My dad. I grew up with him cooking every weekend. His favorite thing to do was spend his weekends cooking on the barbecue pit, making a big gumbo, inviting people over. We always had groups of people over, my parents' friends and whatnot, on the weekends. And anytime there was a benefit or anything like that, my dad was always pitching in to help out and cook. And it just kind of landed in my lap naturally because I was so used to seeing him do it. And you could say I'm a lot like him, so it's no surprise to my mom for sure.
Did he introduce you to cooking game? I mean, I know that's not something, that's something a lot of Mississippians, home cooks do, especially like deer or duck or fresh fish or whatever it may be.
Right.
But it's different for every household. Sometimes a lot of folks just end up frying it. But did he?
No, so he did. He got really creative with all of his harvest and different things that people would bring him. And I don't think I realized at the time when I started diving into the world of hunting that I was going to take on so much of how he used to do things, which wild game for him was kind of an opportunity for him to get creative and present some cool new things to people. And I grew up eating, he would cook turtle sauce pecan, or we'd have alligator, or they would go frog hunting, and he would cook some frog dish. So it was not uncommon for us to have everything but fried deer meat as far as wild game goes.
Now, that's nothing against fried deer meat. That was some good molasses.
No,
it's good, but there is a wide variety out there that you can do.
Right.
You can do with your game. I also love that you don't use a usually use, I guess, your traditional kitchen. I'm sure you cook indoors, but it feels like kind of your niche is also using the outdoors as an open kitchen or cooking a lot of your game on an open flame. Was that it? I mean, I know it's
Yes.
intentional, but where did that come from?
Well, when I left restaurants and I started the Gatherin Girl, and this idea that I wanted my purpose for that was to be around people that had a love for the outdoors, because I wanted to, not just the outdoors, but for hunting in particular, because I wanted the opportunity to kind of sit around in cool, intimate settings with those people and learn from them. And I was able to create that when you're cooking for 5 or 6 people outdoors. So it kind of all just fell into place. It was very intentional, but it kind of all just fell into place on its own.
So yeah, you cook on like these big kind of. It's not just if people are listening to Good Things. It's not just like a. I'm sure you use grills, but if they see you at SuperTalk TV, it's that photo of you standing outside and you've got the big drum-looking thing, and you've got your cast iron skillets on top. I thought it was very, very shows kind of what your niche sort of is.
Yeah.
Do you create these? Do you find these, or are these just sort of, how do you get these kind of things to cook off of?
Really, it just depends on where I go. I mean, kind of the idea behind what I do is I want to be able to provide people with a really great meal, no matter what the setup is. And I tell people that, whatever you have, let's use it. Let's cook on it. You want to do it outside? We'll do it outside. So yeah, it's just happenstance. People will be like, hey, I've got this big cool pot you can cook in, or I've got this cool contraption. And I'm kind of like the yes man when it comes to that. So I never really say no. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and adding cooking over open fire and things like that is another element to the experience that people really enjoy.
Probably adds to the flavor too, right, Chef Tori?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Be completely different than cooking on your gas stove on the indoors or something of that nature. Will you be cooking outdoors for Sip and Savor, or tell us how you will be feeding those who show up Saturday, April the 6th at the Max?
Yeah, so I'm going to be serving a smoked duck and sausage gumbo, and I am going to have a big gumbo pot, so we'll be serving it up right there in front of everybody in a giant cast iron gumbo pot. So
sounds like it's going to be absolutely delicious. I also saw where you're going to be with the Natchez Food and Wine Festival. Girl, you're just everywhere. And this will be actually the weekend before. This is coming up Friday, correct? So tell us we're all about visiting Mississippi and traveling. So we can go to Natchez this weekend. We can go to Meridian the next weekend. So what's happening with the Food and Wine Festival?
Awesome. Yeah. So we are doing a chef's preview dinner for the Natchez Food and Wine Fest. The Natchez Food and Wine Fest is actually in July, I believe July 27th, 28th weekend. We're doing a preview dinner at Churchill Variety, which is a newer concept that was opened by Tate Taylor in Churchill. And we've sold tickets, and there's myself and 3 other chefs, Taylor Rickett, Molly Manning, and David Leathers. David's from Nashville, I believe, and I believe that Taylor Rickett's from South Carolina, South Carolina. Molly is also a Natchezian, and we're doing a 4-course dinner. We sold tickets. I believe we're close to our sellout at this point, and people are going to get to come and try all of our food and do like a little meet and greet to get people ready and excited about the festival in July.
Natchezian. That is a new word for me, Chef Tori. Natchezian. I don't know what I'd have called you all, or those that live in Natchez, to be honest with you, is probably what I would have said. But
I've heard that from someone somewhere.
I feel very refined saying that, my Natchezian friends. And so, yeah, but I love it. I love that you're also getting to take your story on the road, too, and sort of show what you do. It's, that's one thing about cooking. It's it's maybe the same ingredients, but the way people prepare it or the way they sort of infuse their own twist to it makes a piece of steak or chicken taste, sort of completely different. What's your favorite game to cook, Chef Tori?
Oh, good question. That's a good question. I really enjoy cooking elk, mostly because elk is just a really, really superior cut of piece of meat in general. Most of elk, any part of it is amazing. But for local stuff, I love to mess with ducks.
Ducks. Can you stick with us,
yeah.
Chef Tori? Can you hang on for just a second?
Sure.
All right, we've got more with Chef Tori Loomis. She's the Gatherin Girl coming up next. And don't forget, you can watch us. We are on SuperTalk TV on your computer or your mobile device. Continuing our conversation with Chef Tori Loomis. She's out of Natchez. You may know her as the Gatherin Girl. She hunts, she storytells, and then she cooks everything. And she is going to be in Natchez Food and Wine Festival preview this coming up Friday. You may not get tickets for that, but you can still get tickets for the Sip and Savor, which is happening the following Friday, or Saturday, excuse me, in Meridian at the Max. So, Chef Tori, your niche is game cooking, which I feel like a lot listening to Good Things, at least do some of that's at least local here in Mississippi. You mentioned duck is your favorite to do that's sort of local. From your perspective, and I know you get a little more fancier than we do, where do home cooks go wrong the most when it comes to cooking things that they have harvested themselves?
Overcooking and over-seasoning.
She went straight for it, girls, ladies and gents. She said you over season and you overcook it. And I would say you're probably right. Especially, I know for myself, Chef Tori, I'm always notorious with deer overcooking it because it's so lean, and I forget that. And so sometimes that can make a little tougher. So how do you pull back those reins? Because one of the complaints I would say for some when it comes to game is that it just has its own distinct taste, right? Like it has its own sort of distinct. And so how do you help work with that, or not mask it, but make it taste good?
Yeah, that is what everyone that's a first time wild game eater, or they're used to it, but they don't really like it. The one thing they say is it has that gamey taste, and that's why I don't like it. I am a big fan of using salt. And letting your meat rest and sit out at a room temp before preparing it, as in before cooking it. Salt works wonders, and it's such a basic ingredient. You don't have to overdo it with all these crazy seasonings and marinades, but yeah, letting it sit and rest at room temp, and a little bit of salt and sometimes some citrus, squeeze a lemon or lime, and not overcooking it. I think too, the more like you were saying, it's such most wild game is so lean, it's so easy to overcook it. And there, like we said earlier, there's nothing wrong with a good piece of fried deer meat.
No, not at all.
There's a lot of things you can do with wild game aside from fry it and cook it to death, for sure.
Well, and I think some people are a little bit more experimental, and some are just nervous, right? Because it's a precious commodity you've worked hard for.
That's right.
And you don't want to screw it up. So you kind of want it to do, you kind of want to use it and make sure that you're going to enjoy it for sure. I know that giving back, or sort of thinking about being responsible with your harvesting and your hunting, is something you're passionate about too, Chef Tori. So when it comes to respecting the nature that you're in, what's kind of your message to those hunter and gatherers out there?
Ooh, that's a heavy one. I don't really know how to answer that. That's such a big question. I mean, I just like to treat I'm big on, not going out and as a hunter, not killing everything you see, and enjoying nature for what it is, and taking the time to understand the animal you're hunting, and you're in its territory, and respecting that.
You have a beautiful video up on your Instagram, which is the Gatherin Girl, that sort of shares a little bit about your story, but then also the fact that you honor the things that you took a life, and that weighs big responsibility, and to turn around and do it justice in terms of using it for what you can, and not necessarily being wasteful. I love too that you talk.
Yeah, being wasteful is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. One who not a hunter here, but I totally appreciate those that harvest for me, and and to that sort of respect, that relationship with the land. You also talk about how you have this powerful influence of our food has a powerful influence over our lives, more than just the quality of it. For you, what has food sort of provided, other than obviously nourishment, but what are we sometimes missing in the hustle and the bustle of everyday life?
Oh, I just think there's so much beauty in sitting down and enjoying a meal, or using your hands to prepare a meal. far beyond, everything now. You can have a meal ready to eat that someone else has prepared for you in 5 minutes, and you don't know where it came from. You don't know who's touched it. You're not connected to it at all, which I think is a huge contribution to a lot of nutritional issues that we face, just as a whole, because the more connected you are to the process, from beginning to end, the more thought goes into it, the more thoughtful you are with your meals is a huge thing.
I couldn't agree more with that, Chef Tori. That's putting on my dietitian hat for sure with that. And two, just the connective. I mean, food, we're supposed to enjoy it. It's all about sort of fellowship as well, and then connecting to where it comes from. I know you do a lot of harvesting for your proteins, but we missed the gardening part. That's sort of the softer side of it. Have you already planted your garden for the spring and summer, or are you still waiting a little while before you get that in the ground?
We've been tilling our dirt, and we are actually getting ready to plant. We'll be planting when I get back from Sip and Savor. So we're getting ready for that. I've got 2 big raised beds this year, and I'm really excited to get those going.
Well,
I've got my own compost very close. We just dug a big hole in the ground, and I've been composting and going to get some worms to go in that compost, so that we can get that dirt moved over to our garden pretty quickly, hopefully.
What do you grow that would be out of the ordinary from your standard tomatoes, cucumbers, that kind of thing?
Oh, let's see.
I have all the hard questions.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I have to think back to, I like to grow okra. I'm a big fan of okra, that's still pretty common. I mean, I don't really try to go too far out of the realm of what's normal for our area. Kind of feel like, things grow good here. There's a reason they do. So I'm going to grow a lot of herbs. I'll grow some lavender and basil and mint and rosemary and all of that. And we'll do, eggplant, cucumbers, tomatoes. I'll do bell peppers and onions and garlic for sure. Those are staples in my kitchen, and I cannot wait to have them fresh from my garden again.
I was going to say, man, you just had like a whole sort of pantry full right there. You're one that actually grows your herbs and uses them, which I always find very admirable, because a lot of folks grow their herbs and then they may use a few, but then herbs are one thing, if they get going, man, they really start to produce, and you feel a little overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I learned about 5 years ago, I would guess, or maybe around COVID time, so not quite 5 years. I learned I had a plethora of herbs, and I learned to dry them and save them. So I was like, okay, well, we can do this then. And then you can kind of make your own spice blends with them. So
hey, that's a good idea for those listening who may have those herb plants. Think about something that you can do at the end of the season for sure. Chef Tori, if people want to follow you and see what you're up to, I highly recommend, if they're on Instagram, they're beautiful photos of your food and sort of your craft and all of that. I've enjoyed watching you over the last year or so. Is that the best place to find you, or are there other places?
That is probably the most updated place to find me. Thank you for saying that, though. Yeah, so Instagram is definitely where I keep everything up to date. And I do have a website, kind of the docking spot for my Instagram, and then a few of the things I've done in the past, and I should probably do better on keeping up with that. But yeah,
you're too
Instagram
busy
is definitely
cooking.
a place to find me.
Which is the main thing. Is there anywhere are you working somewhere where people can come and taste your food at a certain restaurant, or like when you're not cooking for events? Where are you cooking?
So, yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've kind of got the word out that I'm doing private dinners. And so I leave my books open. Most of the time I'll do like kind of an announcement on, I should say Facebook too then, other than just Instagram, and share with people that I'm available for private dinners on certain dates. And that has kept me completely booked. I get some calls. Sometimes people get some wild game and they want to do a private dinner with that, or sometimes it's just a group of girls who want to have a 4-course meal together. So,
well, congratulations!
I've stayed busy in that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, we need a cookbook. Just go ahead and tell you that, Chef Tori. So, go on, put that on your to-do list.
I've had people bring that up a few times lately, so hopefully I can get one in the works here soon.
Well, people can at least come out and see you again that Saturday, April the 6th at the Max and Meridian for Sip and Savor. I appreciate your time, Chef Tori, and let's keep in touch.
Thanks so much.
All righty. You guys stick with us. We got more for you coming up next.